Is Jesus contradicting the Old Testament in Mark 2 verses 26 whenever he says that Abiathar was the high priest whenever David visited the tabernacle at Nob, whenever 1 Samuel 21 says that it was Ahimelech that was the priest at Nob? I'm Jason, the author of the Questions to Eden blog, and this is Questions to Eden. I just have 4 main points that pretty much resolve this contradiction. The first point is that Abiathar was Ahimelech's son, so he would have been present whenever David showed up, and it was very common for priests' children to at least have some duties in the temple or tabernacle, like Eli's sons in 1 Samuel 2. That goes to the second point now, where the Greek wording there doesn't necessarily have to be translated to when Abiathar was the priest. In fact, the word epi elsewhere in the New Testament, like in Luke 3:2, 4:27, 20:37, Mark 12:6, Acts 11:28, and Hebrews 1:2, it is translated as in the days of. So we have more instances where epi means in the days of than it means when. That goes against the claim as well. The third point is that Bart Ehrman, very famous for popularizing this contradiction, says that it was this very contradiction that made him question his faith. But he makes the same mistake on page 9 of misquoting Jesus whenever he calls David King David during this time whenever he went to the tabernacle at Nob. David wasn't even king yet, so he makes the same mistake as Jesus. He also does it again whenever he calls the tabernacle at Nob the temple, which wasn't even built yet. So if we're going to apply the same criteria that Bart is applying to Jesus, Bart isn't even a reliable source of historical reports because he can't even get the names of people and places right. The last point is that it was actually very common for 2 high priests to share the responsibilities, and we see this elsewhere in scripture. So it's entirely reasonable to expect Ahimelech and Abiathar to both be in the tabernacle when David shows up. Moreover, shortly after this event, Saul comes and kills Ahimelech, and then Abiathar is deemed the high priest. Just like Bart Ehrman calling David King David before he was king, Jesus isn't necessarily making a mistake whenever he's saying in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, whenever Abiathar may not have been the priest at this point in time. He's using general, not strict language. And Craig Evans also supports this in the Apologetics commentary on the Gospel of Mark, where he says that Ahimelech and Abiathar would have shared priestly duties in that tabernacle, and he offers examples like in the New Testament in the book of Luke, where we read that Annas and Caiaphas both shared the priestly position. We have more with Eli and his sons in 1 Samuel 2, and then in 2 Samuel chapter 15, Abiathar himself shares that position with Zadok during Absalom's rebellion. So Jesus was most likely using general language to mark a time period for what he's talking about. He's also not incorrect, as Abiathar could have shared that priest position with his father, and moreover he gains that title very shortly after this. So Jesus is not making a mistake because he's using general language. You would have to assume Jesus is using strict language in order for this to be a contradiction, which completely ignores everything I just talked about and scholarly opinion. So no, Jesus does not contradict 1 Samuel in Mark chapter 2, and that contradiction is resolved.